What's up everyone and welcome back to the MMA Zone. Today, let's get started with Paddy Pimblett reacts to Ilia Topuria win. Now that Ilia Topuria has retained the UFC's featherweight crown, a showdown with Paddy Pimblett happening anytime soon seems unlikely, but following Topuria's impressive win at UFC 308, the baddie outlined why he thinks he can beat the featherweight king. And before we continue, make sure to leave a like on the video to help support the channel. For some time now, Pimblett and Topuria have been exchanging verbal jabs. But in more recent months, it's been Pimblett who's continued talking about a potential showdown with Topuria, while the latter has largely shut down that talk. Well, after Topuria put away the legendary Max Holloway at UFC 308 on Saturday, Pimblett was quick to argue he would beat the Georgian Spanish star.
Heavy. Hand sanitizer boy with the win. Heavy. Well done, Ilia. Give you his due, lad. 16-0. Hand sanitizer boy. Can't wait for him to come back up to lightweight. Still think I'd beat him. I really do. I still think I'd beat him, lad, whether he's just beat Max Holloway or not. I still think I'd beat him, lad, by kicking him on the feet or taking him down or submitting him. I genuinely think I'd beat him, but congrats, Ilia Topuria. Well done, son.
So on account of both men's growing fan bases, there's no doubt a Topuria-Pimblett scrap would garner a lot of interest. But as noted, it seems pretty unlikely that this fight would happen anytime soon. After all, Topuria is competing at 145 pounds, and if he does move up to 155, one would think that he'd only do so for a title shot or an even more massive fight. Case in point, after Topuria's big win, Conor McGregor had this to say about El Matador via social media. "Good little fighter, too small for anything substantial in my opinion," McGregor wrote. "He was getting chewed up there. Few featherweights now in the mix, and I beat every single one of them. I am that division's menace, point blank. Everyone on that list I hurt badly and finished. Not one of them lay a glove on King Mac." When Topuria was asked to respond while talking to the media, the featherweight champ was quick to fire back at the polarizing star. "Bro, you're sick. You have some problems to fix in your mind. You need to take some classes on respect and how to treat people because you're going to end up really bad. When you follow these kinds of values in life, you end up really bad. So ask God not to cross paths with me. Never ever, because I'm going to you up whenever I'm going to see you." Naturally, it wasn't long before these comments fired around the internet and prompted discussion about the possibility of Topuria and McGregor throwing hands. For example, here's what Ariel Helwani had to say.
"This guy is a superstar. This guy is an absolute superstar. As I'm saying this right now, the last guy that we felt this way about, Conor McGregor, tweeting 43 seconds ago, 'Call me.' Say what you will, it would 1000% be one of the biggest fights in UFC history."
Yep. Topuria versus McGregor would generate truckloads of cash for the UFC, but what weight would it take place at? Most people have a tough time seeing McGregor making lightweight these days. Is welterweight even a realistic possibility? What do you think? Islam Makhachev won't move weight classes. It wasn't too long ago when Islam Makhachev was talking about moving up to welterweight to challenge for that division's title. But recently, one of the lightweight champ's coaches confirmed that the Dagestani smashing machine has put those plans on hold. Why? If you follow Makhachev, you know that he said winning another title is one of his goals. For example, when Leon Edwards was holding the UFC's welterweight crown, Makhachev floated the possibility of moving up to 170. But in a recent interview with Submission Radio, Makhachev's striking coach, Javier Mendez, reported that Islam will not be moving up as long as Belal Muhammad is holding the belt. That's because Belal has trained with Makhachev and Team Hamid and they're friends. But could we see Makhachev defending the lightweight title against another division champion in the near future? Namely, Ilia Topuria? The latter has also shared fighting for another division's belt is on his bucket list. Well, Mendez was asked to share his thoughts on Topuria's impressive victory, and while doing so, he heaped praise on El Matador's boxing. I would think that he's probably the best boxer in the whole entire division. He's really crisp and very on point with his boxing, and therefore you see how he uses it really well. But his boxing, I think, is his best attribute out of everything he does. He's impressive, very impressive. I've been saying he's a good boxer, but last night proved to me that he's the best boxer presently in the UFC. Actually, in the entire world. He's the best boxer in MMA. And while breaking down the potential fight between Ilia and Islam, Mendez relayed the following. You know, like I said, he's got the best boxing. I believe in the whole division, you know, the whole all divisions, not just one, all of them. So that would be an area I'd be foolish to want to try to go up against boxing for boxing. That's not a smart move, you know. And it just would be like if Ilia decided to go submission for submission with Islam, that's not a smart move on his part either. So it's all strategy and how you approach it, how your fighter approaches it. and you know what mistakes you can correct while the fight is going on. What do you think? Do you see Topuria and Makhachev fighting in 2025? And who do you see winning the All-Star fight if it does indeed happen? Dustin Poirier talks about Charles Oliveira and Michael Chandler. Michael Chandler will have his chance at UFC 309 to avenge his 2021 loss to Charles Oliveira. But according to one man who has shared the octagon with both fighters, Dustin Poirier, Iron Mike is likely headed for another defeat at the hands of Do Bronx. When Chandler defeated Oliveira at UFC 262, he was finished by the now former lightweight champion shortly into round 2. Ahead of their November 16th rematch, Poirier was asked to weigh in on the contest while sitting down with ESPN. Here's some of what the Diamond had to say. I think it's a fun matchup, but I think if Charles Oliveira is going into this fight with the same mindset he had when I fought him, or the first time Chandler fought him, I think he's going to get the win. Obviously, Chandler's very explosive and an incredible athlete and can hurt or put away Charles, but I just think Charles is going to be better everywhere, on the feet and on the ground. You can understand where Poirier is coming from. In Oliveira, we're talking about a guy who holds the UFC's record for most finishes ever at 20, and as noted, he's already defeated Chandler once. But what do you think? Could Chandler take one back from Do Bronx at UFC 309? MMA community goes off on Dana White for comments. And if you thought the MMA world would get a reprieve from the seemingly growing feud between Dana White and Francis Ngannou this weekend on account of the massive UFC 308 card, think again. In recent days, the tensions between White and Ngannou has ratcheted up all over again. Following the Predator's successful PFL debut, White continued to claim that Ngannou could have made more money by staying with the promotion, but that he feared the Slugger was worried that by fighting John Jones, he would lose. White has also been claiming that he actually wanted to cut Ngannou back in 2018, following his losses to Stipe Miocic and Derek Lewis. Ngannou, meanwhile, has accused White of being bitter because he ultimately decided to leave the UFC. He also claimed the promotion had promised him additional funds for his bouts with Stipe Miocic and Cyril Gane, which he says he never got. Well, not surprisingly, White was asked to respond to these latest comments during the UFC 308 post-fight press conference. The outspoken UFC CEO scoffed at the claim the promotion owes him money and proceeded to slam the former UFC champ's character.
Me praying for it, trust me, I don't think about Francis that much. You guys asked me the question about the PFL, and I responded. Other than that, the only one who's praying for his demise is probably the PFL, because they signed a contract with a guy that doesn't deliver any numbers and ticket sales or pay-per-views. And they got to keep paying this guy for however long, and good for him, and not good for them. I didn't like Francis as a person. Wasn't the guy I wanted to do business with. My boys were telling me he's misunderstood, and I told them, when somebody shows you who they are, believe them. Yeah, it wasn't about him becoming the heavyweight champion of the world. Francis isn't a good guy.
Given that it wasn't long ago really when White was calling Ngannou the baddest man on the planet and questioning if Jones really wanted to fight him, these comments prompted plenty of reactions. Gotta be crazy for Usman, Adesanya, and all the other UFC fighters who personally know Francis and think he's an amazing person, to watch their boss try to gaslight everyone into thinking he's a piece of ish because he asked for a raise. Toxic workplace. Man who slapped his wife in public had character concerns about a fighter, LMFAO. Big shout out to Francis Ngannou for really forcing this guy to expose what a huge BSing baby he is. I don't think a single other MMA fighter has ever made this fraud look so ridiculous. He knows the UFC looks bad for letting Francis walk, so he's just going to disparage him till the end of time just to seem like he knew what he was doing. 100% bitter, so much contradictions. If Francis was such a bad guy, why were you trying to re-sign him so hard when his contract was up? It really sounds like Dana just hates when someone's cutthroat in the business and now just happy to be there. Dana saying he is a good person. One person and their org is being sued for underpaying, and Ngannou has coaches that say Ngannou gave them their biggest paydays from the Fury fight. You can't question who Ngannou is. He just wasn't going to bow down to Dana in the UFC. So where do you come in on all this? Do these fans have a point? One thing seems certain. As long as White remains the UFC CEO, Ngannou won't be returning to the octagon. Israel Adesanya reacts to UFC call-out. After dropping jaws throughout the MMA world on Saturday with his highlight reel finish of Arman Petrosyan, Sharra Magomedov raised eyebrows by calling out Israel Adesanya. But based on the last Stylbender's final reaction to the call-out, it doesn't look like Izzy's gonna demand that the UFC make it happen. If you saw UFC 308, then you saw Sharra Bullet record one of the most memorable finishes in recent history, if not ever, by taking out Petrosyan with 2 spinning back fists. Then, following the fight, Magomedov proceeded to tell Daniel Cormier that, "Thank you very much, I am happy, very happy. Listen to me guys, I am the best striker in this division. I am Smash Israel Adesanya. Stay in your seats. This island was captured by the Pirate, his fight nickname. Don't panic, Dana White. I came for my gold. Adesanya was live streaming his viewing party, and when Bullet made the initial call out, the former champion seemed to let it slide right off his back. Keep my name out your mouth. What did I do? Why he say for? Now, Adesanya didn't outright say no to the fight, but given that he's ranked number 2 in the UFC's middleweight division and Magomedov has yet to crack the top 15, you would think that his camp would advise against taking that fight. Adesanya has little to gain by facing Magomedov right now, but it seems pretty clear that Magomedov is determined to make the fight happen. Case in point, while talking to the media afterwards, he claimed the only way the Izzy fight doesn't happen is if Adesanya retires.
I beat his friend and sparring partner Blood Diamond in China, and I was ready to fight him. You know, Israel is very popular in China, but then he switched to MMA and signed to UFC, and now I'm here too. The only way for Israel Adesanya to avoid the fight with me is to retire.
So it'll be fascinating to see if Bullet and Izzy do fight in, say, 2025. But what do you think? Is this a fight that Adesanya could elect to take just to prove who the better striker is? Dana White breaks silence on Shane Carwin. Many fans are still reeling from some of the disturbing medical issues multiple fighters recently reported in an effort to have the $375 million settlement approved for the antitrust lawsuit that was brought against the UFC. In particular, the extensive issues that former interim heavyweight champion Shane Carwin shared he's dealing with prompted plenty of concern. Well, following UFC 308, Dana White was asked to comment on Carwin's situation, and he did. If you missed it, in the statement that Carwin had submitted to the court as part of the lawsuit settlement, the retired fighter reported, cognitive tests conducted at the Cleveland Clinic Lou Rubo Center for Brain Health and Concussion Legacy Foundation at Boston University, among others, are indicating I've suffered damage to the prefrontal cortex and left hemisphere. I spent days in bed suffering from bouts of paranoia, fear, and anxiety. I've been hospitalized twice to treat addiction. I've been unable to maintain adequate focus to hold down an engineering job. I face serious challenges in meeting basic everyday expenses for food, shelter, and transportation, and in basic life skills necessary to function. When Dana White was asked about Carwin's disturbing situation, the UFC CEO made the following claim.
We have been helping him out. We have been working with Shane Carwin for a long time.
White didn't provide any specific details regarding what constitutes help, and he wasn't asked for any specifics. What do you make of White's response? Conor McGregor retires after seeing Robert Whittaker's shattered jaw and concern from a fan on Twitter. The fan had posted earlier talking about Whittaker and the unperceived strength of Khamzat, writing, "People ask why Whittaker tapped so fast against Chimaev. I was confused as well, but Khamzat dislocated Whittaker's jaw and broke almost all of his teeth. Fighters possess a strength that goes far beyond what one perceives as a spectator." The fan then tagged Conor McGregor and had this to say to him, "No reason to come back to UFC or fighting in general. You have a beautiful family, worth $500 million, businesses, as being a successful businessman. You made your dreams come true, becoming UFC double champ. Don't risk your health or well-being. You've got nothing to prove to anyone, champ. Continue to live life with happiness. Look at this below." Conor responded to the fan saying, "You know what? You're right. Goodbye." The MMA community went off on Conor, claiming that he retires every month and is only sticking around for engagement and to remain relevant. Here's what the community had to say. "We said goodbye years ago, bro. Saw Topuria knock out Holloway and retired. He was never coming back ever. The fact that anyone believed him was ridiculous. Thank God it's official. Now all the relevancy tweets will stop and look at me tweets. Homie, you've been washed up for about 8 years now. He's just scared he might run into Dustin somewhere, coming up with any excuse. I would too if I was dominated like that." Top comments. "Paid $20 just for the privilege of watching two of my favorite fighters get wrecked. What a night. You writing Max off is crazy. He's only lost to the champion. He's only 33, still in his prime. I want to see Francis Ngannou and Dana White settling things at a power slap contest. Rakic runs from Ankalaev the whole fight. MMA fans, see, I told you, Ankalaev is boring. Feel bad for him. Ank looked like he wanted to make it interesting."